Welcome back to everyone, and lovely to see you again. So my first task today is to remind you about the purpose of the webinars and the research that accompanies them. And in doing this, I'll summarise where we've got to so far. And the summarising is kind of intended to be helpful for newcomers and to remind us all, but also it will become part of the research. So I want to start by introducing the team. First, the CD part of the team. This is the team that have come along with the community development long-term experience to share, and who have a passion to share that. Actually, we all have that, but this team we're calling the CD team. And also we have so you've got B. Rogan, Carmel, Daveson and Maria Tennant. And the second part of the team is the research team. Can we put that one up?
Sorry, it's
down.
being delayed.
We've got a little bit delay happening there. So this is Natasha, who you've been seeing, who does research with QFCA, is a CD worker with Caloundra Community Centre, but also is working with Griffith on this piece of research. Helen, Helen Betts teaches community development at Griffith, and myself. I've said I'm a retired enthusiast of community development and action research. So we're the Griffith University team here, working with QFCA and supporting neighbourhood centres to document their journey. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. So there are two purposes to this series of discussions. One is a conversation purpose, to continue a discussion which enables neighbourhood centres to work out the relevance of CD to their work. What's required if you want to incorporate more CD? And if it is relevant, what further supports are needed? And then there's a research person to document this discussion so that you can build on it into the future. This is, this is so we don't keep reinventing the wheel. We kind of build on the conversation we've already had. So it's your journey, it's your practice, it's your centre, it's your research, and it's yours to use. We're not going to use it outside of this process. We'd love some confirmation that we're all on the same page about this, and you can provide that via the chat today or the forum, which Natasha will give you links for. So the journey to now, we last session, we had a story from Natasha in central Queensland, Mackay, and from that story and drawing it out, Maria Tennant commented that to call it community development, the people experiencing the issue are at the centre of the work, at the centre of doing the work. Their skills, knowledge and wisdom are valued, built on and used every step of the way. So the people who have the concern or the aspiration are in control of what actions are taken. The work is for the people, by the people. So at the end of the day, the people can say, we did it ourselves. Their relationships to each other become central to the journey. One of the things we asked you last week was, what do you do? And you provided a lot of, an overwhelming number of activities, all of which we will list and which I know have been listed in research before. If you categorise those to some extent, you could perhaps say some of the unique aspects of neighbourhood centres are they do locally responsive service delivery. They help people build relationships to each other. So there's a sense of belonging and a sense of being part of something, having new relationships through the activities that happen within the centre. They organise community events, deliver community projects, do community networking, amongst a range of other things. These are all very valuable parts of neighbourhood centre practice. And actually all these things can take a service delivery or a developmental approach. Many of them we would call, or probably in the system that we're part of, take a service delivery approach for a variety of reasons. However, they do represent opportunities to do more things and existing neighbourhood centre strengths. So I'm just summing up here some of the things we asked you. What brought you to the session? You said a lot of things here too, all of which we'll list in the documentation. But to sum up, I think the message was to more clearly differentiate community development from service delivery, to challenge ourselves to do more community development, and perhaps to try to see the sector, the neighbourhood centre sector, do more community development. Is community development, as we're explaining it, neighbourhood centre work? You said it should be, but it often is not. And we also asked, has the practice been lost? And you said to some extent, not completely, but to some extent it's been lost in the overwhelming pressure on neighbourhood centres to do a range of other things. Can we go to, your computer's slow to respond. Now, we didn't ask what barriers you're facing, but you named lots of them. And amongst them are funding and reporting, which does not anticipate a community development approach, demand for outcomes rather than demand for really good empowering processes, not knowing where to start, lack of time to try new ways of doing things, very few supports for practice, new practice particularly, a need for organisational support, a need for managers' support, that boards are often unclear that they want this kind or support this kind of practice. Community members may have come to expect more individualistic responses, more service delivery responses, and the scarcity of community development training and education that often, for those of us who've done social work anyway, we've been taught in an overemphasised way to deliver services rather than to support community development processes. As we mapped those and put them on this slide, we thought, oh, this slide kind of shows how connected we are through the barriers we face, which just wasn't expected, but the picture brought that out. Okay, so that's just a summing up of the first session and the research to date. It would be really nice if we could take a few minutes just hearing some comments from you about your thinking on this and where you're at with it now, what kinds of things you've been thinking in the meantime, both about the purpose and the content of where we're going. If you use reaction button down the bottom and put a thumbs up, we'll be able to see who's wanting to ask questions or make comments here. And you will need to unmute yourself to do that. Nothing to say. Looking along, I can't see.
Yes, Mark.
Oh, yeah, I just thought that was a great summary, Anne. That really captured, I thought, what was on last week. And I thought the story format you used last week was awesome as well. As I think we're all at everyone, I guess that I chatted to my breakout groups, were at different paces in terms of their CD journey. So the story was a great way to bring everyone on board together, no matter where we're at. And I've just been reflecting since the week that yeah, there's lots of interferences, I guess, in doing CD practice that we all have to deal with in our in our work. And I wonder how many of those interferences we use ourselves as, I won't say excuses, but as it's a lot simpler for us as workers sometimes to jump into service delivery.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's something that we might be able to chat about at some point.
Any other comments or thoughts that, or questions or issues people are struggling? Oh yes, Karen. You're on mute, Karen. Karen, you're on mute.
Sorry,
That's it?
I've used screen, it's a bit touchy, sorry. I was just wondering, sorry, I was not at the last Zoom meeting. Sorry, Claudia was there. She's unwell this week, so I'm attending on behalf of the centre. In what context is community development in regard to the community's funding and stuff like that? I know that we're not funded to do community development, so we're funded to do community support. So I'm trying to get it around in my head, and sorry, excuse my ignorance or whatever it might be, that we need to do community development, but we're not funded to do that. So I'm not sure why we're pushing on that way for. Is there a reason behind that?
Yeah. Shall I have a go at answering?
Sorry about this, but I wasn't. Sorry, I apologise for not being at the last meeting, but yeah, I'll pop myself on mute.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's if that is coming up for other people. So the reason we're having the conversation is that neighbourhood centres asked for it at the Community Development Conference, and probably part of the reason that people asked for it and we were keen to do something with that, and QFCA was keen to do something with that, is that we do know that we can do community service and community support, and it may change something for individuals, but it doesn't actually strengthen communities in themselves. And one of the questions someone did ask, and I should have put this on the slide, at the end of the last session was, should neighbourhood centres be taking a stronger stance that we need to do community development as part of our work, and it should be funded and it should be considered in relation to outcomes and reporting. So in a sense, there was a bit of a collective action thing emerging there, that if we talk about it, if we build a shared understanding, we can perhaps open some doors to taking it on more fully in our practice. And some organisations are starting to do that, or have been doing that for some time. So I think, yeah, does that answer your question, Karen?
Yes, thanks, Anne. And like I said, I think they both go together, and you can't really have one without the other, even though we're only funded for one of those things. Yeah. And having the time, I guess, also to be able to do it is almost a luxury here. I'm not sure about other centres, but yeah, so I know that the department is adamant about, we're not to be doing community development, but it really is a part of identifying what we need to be doing for our communities, really. Yeah, so thank you. You have answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, we might move on. We're going to have a breakout now, and Natasha's going to introduce that and give you a topic. This is a chance to talk with each other and explore a little bit further some of the issues. Natasha will give you the briefing there, I think. Natasha, are you on mute? Natasha.
Sorry about that, everyone. My system just slowed down for a minute. Okay, So just to check, you can hear me, Anne?
Yes.
Yes, great. Sorry about that. Okay, so for our first breakout group, it's an opportunity to meet one another, and also look at the question of basically you've started to identify the barriers to practice in the last session, and we'd like you to look further to further this discussion and look at why these barriers exist. So we'd like you to reflect on this question specifically. What are the 3 top things that stop me from doing this work in my neighbourhood centre, and why? So we'll have about 10 minutes on this. And when we're sharing, if we just keep it to a brainstorming style, so just getting down the key things and then moving on. And once again, if we have one person selected as a scribe, to put it into the chat box and press enter at the very end, remembering to put your group name at the top. So Thomas will take us into the groups.
Okay. So we're going to now just try and capture that in a poll. Is that right? Am I on track? I've kind of got so engrossed in the conversation, I've forgotten what we're going to do. Yes, so we're just going to try and capture your top 3 things that in a poll, because this will be very helpful in trying to work out what are the things that just have to be addressed if we're to do more community development in our work. So, Thomas, you're going to put the poll up?
Yep. Has the poll come up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
May not capture everything that people want, but maybe go for the closest thing. It's a limitation of these polls that we can't have you write your own bits. How's that going, Thomas?
Yeah, I've got 21 out of the 29 voted.
That's probably about it, because I don't know whether we've done it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now we're coming to the heart of our session today, and I'm going to hand over to B to introduce it.
Thanks, Anne, for that. That was a really good little discussion. I really enjoyed that discussion.
Yeah, me too.
It was fantastic. It's lovely to see everyone again and to meet the new people as well, even in this virtual world that we're all really getting used to. In webinar 1, Carmel shared with us the incredible story about how 3 South Sea Island women who together with their organisation were able to bring about significant structural change in a learning institute with flow-through benefits for their community. Through the story, we could see how she, as a community development worker, worked alongside with them, together, besides. We could also see the precise layers of the community development method in practice. The first layer was the layer of self or implicate, the I. The second is the micro, which is I and you, and the meso, I, you, and we. Fostering the group or the small public. Today, I have great pleasure to introduce two workers from the Neighbourhood Hub in Mackay who are going to share some of their experiences in their CD work. Toni Marie Ernst, who is the Volunteer and Emergency Relief Coordinator, Financial Counsellor, and Safe Pathways Support Worker. Say hi, Toni Marie.
Hi.
And Val Edsel, who is the Community Development Worker. Say hi, Val.
Hi, everyone.
In a pre-recorded video, which we will tell you how to access shortly, they'll share a glimpse of their current journey in choosing to work in this community development method and how some of the barriers that we've just talked about did not impede their practice, but how they were addressed. They will also share how the community development method fits within their own social justice value base, as this method gives the people we work with a voice, creates ownership, and builds leadership. You will hear how the two of them made a conscious decision to learn the practice of community development, took a risk, and created the opportunity. I know that you will see on the video, they have a lot of things to say, and you might like to make a few notes when listening in preparation for the reflection session in the next breakout group. So you will be directed now by Natasha on how to access the YouTube. Okay, over to you, Natasha.
Okay. So everyone, there's going to be a link put up in the chat box, so just make sure that that's visible to you. And we're going to watch the video via the chat box, so we'll just click the actual link, the YouTube link. When we do this,
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect and share my personal journey of community development. For myself, I started with the Neighbourhood Hub 3 years ago as a student. I volunteered for 9 months and then was given the opportunity to join the team. I feel community development is something that is just at the core of who I am as a person. I feel my experience of working in the hair and beauty industry for 18 years has really equipped me to be attuned to hearing people's stories and just taking that time to listen and build relationships with people. I had this desire that something needed to change. The challenge, honestly, has come from service delivery model. So there is this immense ownership of everything that you do. There's immense pressure on reporting and capturing all the data so that it travels up the line. Service delivery requires a lot of data collection, a lot of reporting. We're limited on our time that we can spend in our groups. And that really takes away the personal relationship building opportunity. I find myself continuously pulling myself up to not lead. This isn't about me. This isn't about what I have to report on. I'm taking the lead from the groups. I'm taking the lead from the women. So I have to be a lot more flexible with my time and know that while I'm there, I'm devoted to that purpose with the group. The beautiful relationships that come from that. The vulnerability of my community is opened up to me. There's opportunity to really explore the unknown with them. They will bring to you the needs of the broader community. The pressure is really taken off our shoulders. And I think that's something we're not used to if we're to really be honest with ourselves. I'm lucky enough to have the working environment and team environment where we are encouraged to do the weird, the wonderful, and the different. We're encouraged to take bold steps, to try something different. And I think by having such a supportive management, I know that I'm in a safe place to try something different, that there are no repercussions if I fail. The key message today is be bold. There's no harm in failing. There's every opportunity that you will succeed. If I can encourage you today to just take the time to build relationships, take the time to listen, be present in the moment, be genuine, and see where that takes you. See where that takes the relationships you build in this community development framework.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Val. I work at the Neighbourhood Centre here in Mackay. And today I would like just to tell you a story about my journey as a community development worker and how I started exploring community development methodology within the work that I do here. So here's a little bit of backstory. At the Neighbourhood Hub, we do have a few multicultural and migrant programs, including groups like World Cafe and Cold Women's Club. And I guess this story ties in with a project of creating a digital story to share journeys of migrant women, and stories of resilience. As I heard a lot of stories and shared a similar journey myself, I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to share these stories through a video. Let the broader community know about what migrants go through. A funding opportunity came up to apply for some funding to share, to create a video of stories of migrants. And as you know, as it happens in the current environment, an opportunity comes up. And usually there is no time, usually you just need to apply quickly. So which we did, we applied and kind of forgot about it. But I also should say, like, this application was informed by my conversations with women and my personal journey, but we didn't engage with women to actually discuss what this application should look like. So after we did that, that was end of last year, I thought that maybe we could still work on a video with our Cold Women's Club. We did have one digital story created previously. So regardless of the funding outcome, I thought it would be great to create another one. So my initiative was to meet with the Cold Women's Club, and we discussed it. A couple of women said they would be willing to participate. A couple more were hesitating, but with some support, and saying, hey, you can do this, we will help you. They agreed as well. So we left it there because coronavirus happened. It's interesting how when listening to the women's stories then, I heard them, but I didn't see them through a community development lens. So my response was straight away to service delivery. I can just take this idea and take the lead on it. I also had a privilege of starting to explore the community development methodology with a mentor, Carmel, Daveson. And I also had and still have a wonderful colleague, Tony Marie, who started sharing this journey with me around, so what is community development and what it is not. We had some time to actually sit and think, what can we do to explore this project through a community development perspective? And unpacking the reasons behind that, I guess we could see two purposes of this project. Like the initial response of service delivery, let's just take it on and do it, would be a purpose of, I guess, satisfying the funding body, meeting the expectations of the general manager, management committee. But there could be another purpose for this project, stepping back and seeing an overarching purpose of, but this project can also give ownership and voice to these women and let them grow and participate in it and own it. Kind of really spoke to myself, like my values. And after sitting with that, We decided to give it a go. We decided to risk it. And here I think it's important for me to say that at that time, I felt like I needed to spend time and really analyze and reflect on why I do what I do. Why did I want to be courageous and explore this path? So why did I feel that it is important to give the ownership to women and not take over completely over this process? And I think it's very important for anyone, I guess, who works in the sector to really be aware of what drives you as a person and as a practitioner. And thinking about that, I could see that my core values that I see as values of social justice, human rights, and respect really spoke to me in terms of why I want to take the risk and give it a go. And I thought, and I thought it was very important to trust the process while also be supported by a mentor and my colleague. After we deliberately committed to this, to exploring this methodology through this project, the challenges that I faced were, it's a very short-term project. We still need to deliver on it against the funding agreement objectives, and my own insecurities, like I could just take the lead on this project and do an amazing job, but that would be my project. It would benefit the organization and myself, but it wouldn't probably benefit as much the participants, migrant women. And to make it work, I think it was important for myself we took the funding agreement objectives and what we need to report against, and put it together with the community development methodology, and looked at how we can match the methodology steps of working on self, creating one-on-one relationships, and bringing a group together as process outcomes to still meet the overall objectives of the funding agreement. It is a creative process, and personally I must admit that it was difficult. What I realized what we could do is only create timeframes of when we want something to happen, or by when something needs to happen. For example, by this time we should probably start filming the video, and by this time we need to do that. But that is it. We could not put any details in this time frame, in this plan, because the details do not belong to us. We do give the ownership to the women, and they decide what the details are. So if initially we thought as a service delivery lens, the story will tell about courage and resilience of migrant women. So the goal of this project became not creating the story about this, but giving the voice to the women to share what they want to share. We took, oh my God, it was difficult. It was really difficult. It was, okay, how do we start creating a new relationship with a few women, one-on-one, meeting just to talk, just to ask how they're doing without bringing any agenda, and not asking any questions around asking them to do anything within that meeting. But what worked for me is basically just a little bit of preparation and reflection before I go in that one-on-one space. And the only goal that I had was just to listen. I'm just there to listen and to be with you. Naturally, because I'm a migrant myself, I connected with them around the journey of a migrant to Australia. And that took us to discussions around how difficult it can be, what the challenges are, how sometimes others do not understand what women go through. And that naturally and organically led to the discussion of it would be great to let others know. So I really wanted to just jump on that opportunity and ask, well, do you want to tell your story on a camera? Being self-aware, I did not do that. I basically paused, listened, and it organically happened that some of the women were interested in letting the broader community know. For some, it was more of a social emotional support of other challenges, which is absolutely marvelous, because even though it did not assist on my journey of still doing that digital story, but it created a beautiful connection with me and that woman, and I still listened and I still connected with her. So not everyone ended up sharing ideas about talking to the broader public, which is okay. And I think it was important also to do it at the pace of the woman. Do not rush, and really trust and listen. Those one-on-one relationships were beautifully established with some of the concerns similar. And that's when we thought, oh, okay, we have 6 women now who in some shape or form would like to participate in something like that. And we had 6 women, which is, I think, a bit of a big group. It was really difficult to find day and time to meet together. But it's wonderful how naturally, after talking to them one-on-one, they themselves identified their strengths and hopes for this idea. And it naturally fell into 2 smaller groups of a production team, and a group of women who would like to speak and share their voice. Now we are at the stage when we're working with the smaller groups, and what helped us, or myself, is after every meeting, like every week, just sit down and reflect and keep a diary of what we heard, how we use the community development methodology, what were the challenges that I personally faced, what was easy, what was really difficult, and just revisit that. It helps you look at a bigger picture and helps me stay connected to the overarching purpose of giving ownership and giving the voice to the women.
I've dealt with that.
Yeah, with pleasure. I think I could say so much.
I know.
I hope people could grab a few ideas from watching the video. And I can absolutely relate to everyone here today that I myself wear a few hats, and I wish I could just have a magic wand and create extra time, but that's not possible. So instead of worrying about creating more time, I changed the way I approach what I do, and I changed my thinking. So the strategies that help me, I guess, self-awareness and self-reflection, questioning my reactions and my responses, and also being mindful of the power and control imbalances in the environment that I'm in. Also, I guess, being intentional about using my framework, or community development framework in my work, having it next to me and actually looking at it, revisiting it, and seeing where it can be used. And also intentionally create space to actively listen to people's stories and concerns, rather than just listening for ideas for projects and funding. So it's quite different ways of listening. And last but not least, remembering about self-care and being kind to myself and being realistic, because it's not always going to work, and I won't always be able to do community development. And as long as I'm honest about when I do and when I don't do community development, I think that, yeah, these are the strategies that I'm that I'm working on.
Thank you both. Thank you both very much. That was fantastic. I really appreciate it for you both sharing your stories so beautifully, and your commitment to the journey of learning through your practice shines through so clearly. I am really inspired. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Now, And I'm to do the breakout for group 2, isn't it? We're going into breakout session 2. Okay, so we heard this story, and where the workers took the decision to try the CD method and were not dwarfed by the barriers and constraints. In your group, we'd like you to take, we've got 15 minutes, have we? What did you hear in this story that affects you? That's the question. What did you hear in this story that affects you? And remember to have a scribe with your group number, put the points in the chat box as they are raised, and press enter at the very end. Okay, so Thomas, can you get us back into our groups?
So fantastic. I think just before we finish this section, we'd like to open it to have a little bit more, hear a little bit more from you about the stories and what Tony, Marie and Val have shared. And maybe you can share back just a few of the points that became really important to you in that story. Don't forget to unmute yourself, maybe.
So one thing that we discussed in our group was don't lead really stood out for me, because we are just so used to getting in, getting the work done, and particularly in some of those groups that we're trying to assist and coordinate and empower. A lot of the people in those skill sets don't necessarily have those skill sets, to understand the funding and the framework. So it's really hard to not just step in and do it for them, but do it with them. So that really stood out for me.
Don't lead. Very good. And that's that sounds easy, but of course it's not, is it? We get through the day by having a certain amount of control. Lovely. What else came through to you? And yes, who's talking? Trish.
Yeah. Well, we talked in our group. I mean, it was very clear that the organisational had support from the top, so that there was good organisational support and that there was mentoring available. Whilst that shouldn't, if that's not there, it shouldn't stop workers endeavouring, but it really is probably much more likely to be successful if you can get hold of organisational understanding and support. And I suppose in terms of the CD network, that's probably a piece of work that needs to happen at that the senior management level.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it has started to become obvious that some of you have organisational support and some are practitioners trying to find their own way in this without necessarily a lot of organisational commitment. Quite different things. And any other thoughts on the story? Anything else you'd just like to feed back to Val and Tony Marie?
I just wanted to say something small. I think for me it's different levels of support, and that's what the story demonstrated as well. It's the importance of organisational support, team support, and mentor support, and also that capacity to reflect yourself and think about where you are in the process or the story or at all times. And I think the recognition that that means that it takes lots of time and energy, and that that's okay, to kind of give yourself permission to say that CD practice, that there's complex elements to it, and that those different layers are really there to support the process and for it to be a genuine process, and that that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's what I'm seeing in the chat in terms of summary of what people are saying, Sandy Ellen, is that lots of people are saying having the patience to stay with the process, but also the support of different parts of your organisation or your colleagues or other neighbourhood centres. You know, people were saying it was hard to step back from taking a leadership role all the time. I mean, you are leading if you are sharing. So, and that listening for what people are saying, not just for projects or outcomes or something else we can apply for funding, is, yeah, people were talking about the culture of the organisation that supported inquiry and curiosity and supported this practice. So I think there's lots of elements. I like what you said, Sandy Allen, too, about there are different levels within that. There's different parts of the support. Yeah. Trusting the process is a really big thing, and being brave. I suppose if I just personally reflect what Tony Marie said about being bold, and there's no harm in failing, are really important. Often we often feel we have to get it perfect or right or whatever. So
great. Well, thank you to Tony Marie and Val for a fabulous input. Sorry that the process of using video on Zoom became a bit cumbersome. Now, we do just have one more poll, which is the evaluation of this session before we go. And I'm just going to hand over to Natasha to take us through to the last step.
Thanks, Anne. So thank you everyone for all your participation today. So the next webinar will be held on Wednesday, the 2nd of September, 12:30 to 2. And in this session, we're going to dive deeper into the tradition and the method of CD practice. We encourage everyone to keep in conversation between now and the next webinar. There's an opportunity to do that in the forum, which we'll resend the link for, or also just share amongst your colleagues and others you know about what thoughts may have come up for you today. We'll also follow with an email which will have the recording of today and also the file share, so the research documents will be able to be seen on that, so you can access that at any time. And there'll be a new link for the next Zoom link. We encourage, if you know that of anyone that has missed today, if you could just pass on, please, that we do encourage people to watch that recording before the next one, so everyone's all in the flow of the conversation and on the same page. And if we can go, Thomas, to the evaluation questions. We just have 4 quick questions, would be great to have your feedback on. Also, feel free to add any comments, any additional comments in the chat box if you like.
Keep scrolling. There are 4 questions. How are they going, Thomas?
Yeah, I think everyone should have done one by now. Yep.
Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for that feedback. We'll take that on board, and also again for your participation in today. We really look forward to seeing you all again in 3 weeks' time. So again, that's Wednesday, the 2nd of September, 12:30 to 2, for the 3rd webinar. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.